Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so we'll get started. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bob Swiggum. I'm the K-12 Connectivity Officer, basically the guy who is responsible to make sure that the kids in Georgia get connected to internet as best we can. So in light of that, obviously, we're kicking off a brand new project this morning called Student Connect, Georgia Student Connect. And there's going to be two people talking today. One, myself. The other person will be Karen White, who's the vice president from CTC, which is a consulting firm that we hired to help us run this program. They've got a lot of experience doing this in other states. So we hired them on to help us with this particular program. Next slide. Program goals. So what we're trying to do is create a connection with a specific group of students. And so you all know that we have a problem with getting connectivity to people in remote areas. But that's really not the thing that we're focused on right now. What we're really focused on is getting the homework gap fixed. These are the kids that typically do have access, but they can't always afford it. And so these are the kids typically living in low-income housing. And so what we did is we said, well, we don't have enough money, obviously, to solve the problem across the entire state. But so what we're going to do is try to focus in on a group of kids. And we actually worked with Carl Vinson Institute and did some geocoding and located the kids living in these specific low-income housing addresses. And so we gave them the addresses of 756 low-income housing units and asked them, gave them 1.8 million student addresses and said, find the students that are in the low-income housing. And they came back with about 49,000 students. So what we know is there's 49,000 students, at least 6 months ago, there's 49,000 students living in low-income housing units in Georgia. And we have that by district. So we know basically what's out there, and we put together a fund to provide a hotspot and at least a year's worth of connectivity for these kids. And so that's really the program that we're kicking off today is, how are we going to get these devices in the hands of these kids? And obviously the role that you all play is critical in making that happen. So why are we trying to provide this access? Because of the homework gap. Homework gap wasn't caused by the pandemic. It's existed for a long time. It was exacerbated by the pandemic. But it really needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed long term, not just once the pandemic is over with, it's going to go away. It's always going to exist. So we're going to try to address that as best we can and give you guys some tools to do that. Next slide, Jess. And what we did is this money came from the governor. If you remember, there was a GEARS grant given out to the DOE, and we did 3 separate projects. You all know about the doubling of the bandwidth of the PeachNet. You're all getting antennas installed as we speak. This is the third project, and this is the one that we're putting devices in the hands of a group of kids. But again, your participation is key. So if you don't want to participate in this, it's not going to happen. And I want to make sure you understand this is not the EFC program from the FCC, the Emergency Connectivity Fund, which many of you have applied for. In fact, if you didn't know, Georgia, all of you applied for $183 million worth of EFC funds, which is great. And those of you who may not have applied, there's a second window coming up that you can apply for that. But what this program is right now has nothing to do with ECF. You can still apply for ECF. You can still get ECF and do whatever you want with that. This is specific money from the GEARS fund managed by the state to give you guys access to these free devices and data plans. It's not the EBB program. That's another FCC program, the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. That's something that you can't even apply for. That's something that individuals have to apply for. But I want to make sure you understand there's 3 different programs here, and the first 2 from the FCC are not connected to the Georgia Student Connect program. That is something run by the DOE with another pot of federal money. So given that, what I'd like to do now is bring Karen on, and she can talk about how the program's going to work. If you have questions along the way, just put them in chat, or just I don't know if Jess probably has you all muted. You probably unmute yourself and just ask the question. But this is an informative session. We want to make sure you guys have all the information you need because this program kicks off tomorrow. There'll be people calling you asking about whether you want to participate or not. So Karen, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Bob, and good afternoon, everyone. As Bob mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Client Solutions at CTC, and we are here to help you primarily to make sure that the program is successful. Any questions that you have, we'll have a call center set up. You'll have a representative from CTC that's dedicated just for you. You'll have their direct line. So hopefully a lot of any issues that you have, we can help resolve right away. So just briefly, how it will work. We will start, as Bob mentioned, our call center will start calling each of the school districts that have these low-income housing locations within them by a representative. And they will talk to you about whether or not you want to participate and who they should be reaching out to on a day-to-day basis. If you do, to collect the information. They'll talk about the communications tools. I'm going to talk about those today also. But they will provide access to those communication tools for you. They'll manage the distribution of the hotspots with you. And then as the program goes on, they will always be there for ongoing program support. So that's the coordination with you. The service and the hotspots are going to be provided by T-Mobile. There will be. Go ahead. Sorry. Did someone have a question? Okay.
I think that was a mistake. I muted them. Don't worry.
No problem. So as I mentioned, the service and the hotspots are going to be provided by T-Mobile. There will be a hotspot per student. That's important to note. If there are more than one student at a specific address, there will be a hotspot available for each of the students. This is to help with the mobility of kids. If they were to go to a different household, or if they were to move, they can take that hotspot with them. They'll be getting 100 gigabytes of data per device per month. That's what DOE has established with T-Mobile to provide. And they will get device and service support. So that front line of support, as you'll see in the resource documents, that for any connection issues, we're all used to getting things out of the box. Those issues, they can call T-Mobile directly. They're the experts on that setup. If they have additional issues or they're not satisfied with T-Mobile's response, then they will be able to get back to you. You will be that next line of support. If there's questions that you can't answer, then your representative is right there for you to take care of it, and we will take it from there. We've got a direct line to T-Mobile outside of their customer service environment to make sure that issues get resolved and resolved quickly. So that's the interface with T-Mobile. And then to reiterate what Bob was saying, this will give them immediate connections for homework and at-home learning. The COVID-19 situation is very volatile right now, so the need for these devices, the immediate need is maybe growing, but the idea is for these devices to be able to stay with them throughout the year, and then hopefully post-COVID to help solve that homework gap. So that's the whole flow here. What will CTC be doing? As I mentioned, we'll have a call center set up with a program representative dedicated to each school district. We'll have these outreach materials. We've got a website that I'll show you today as well. Outreach events like this one, if there need to be additional ones, then we can coordinate that. And then we'll be doing all the coordination and oversight with T-Mobile. So I see some questions in the chat. Liam, are there any that we should be responding to?
Yeah, one good question that I believe Miranda had was what happens if a student moves out of the district? Are they going to be responsible for collecting the devices?
Bob, I'm going to let you respond to that one.
So the district, I mean, what we're trying to do is make sure that there's the lowest lift possible for the district. So we're not going to ask you to collect these devices or inventory the devices. If the student moves out of the district, they can take the device with them. And what we'll have to do is try to figure out, where they ended up. And because the plan isn't going to be by district, the state's going to manage the plan and the cost, that's all going to be managed by the state. And if we're able to extend the plans, we'll be doing that through the state. And I know this will probably get messy and we'll have to learn as we go, but the districts are not responsible for collecting the devices. And I saw a question from David. Will the devices be set up, for example, installing the battery? I don't know, Karen, does it come with the battery installed?
I've seen it both ways. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to kit them. And I will take any input back to T-Mobile if you guys want them kitted or you recommend to have them with the battery installed, then I can ask T-Mobile to do that. So if that makes sense, then please let us know in the chat or let me know, and we'll do that.
And then David also asked, will CT provide a spreadsheet with serial numbers of the devices?
Yes, we will be tracking. We will get from T-Mobile a list of the devices by serial number. We'll be tracking those against a unique student number that we are going to be assigning. So there will be a student connected to a serial number. So yeah, we can work with you to provide that list if needed. The ambassadors will always have that on hand. So we're creating a database. We've created a database that will collect not only your contact information, it will log all of the conversations with you all. So we have a history of, your needs and participation, yes or no. And then we'll also be collecting in that database all the information from T-Mobile, all the information from you, addresses per student. And actually, it may make sense for me to go to the next slide and start stepping through, because it may answer some of these questions that are coming. So this goes a little bit deeper into the process. So as Bob mentioned, tomorrow we'll be starting to make the calls. You'll get a call from a representative to share additional information, any more questions. All the representatives have been trained on the program and have access to all of the documentation. And they'll talk to you about participation. Now, if you don't know, if you want to consider it, or if you need to go back within your school district and talk about it and stuff, then that's fine. Just let them know that that you need to consider it, and they will get back to you. You can set all that up with them. And then if you do decide to participate, as I mentioned, you will get a list of each of the housing locations. So once that happens, then we will ask you guys to update the list with the student addresses, the actual addresses. And now we realize that a lot of the students, excuse me, are already participating in a program. And if they are, we ask that you note which program they're participating in, or whether or not they're participating in a program and which one. And then you say yes or no to participating in the Student Connect program. So then we will order the hotspots for delivery, and you will note on the spreadsheet, and we'll have columns all set up for you and instructions, whether you want it delivered to you, to a specific school, or directly to the families. And then the schools and the districts, you guys will all distribute the hotspots to the students. T-Mobile will send directly to the families, those that choose that delivery route. And then as I mentioned, T-Mobile provides that hotspot service and support, and then any issues that can't be resolved by that customer support line and the families are not satisfied, that goes through you and then to CTC. So there's a little bit more. I'll stop here because it looks like there's a lot of questions going through. So Liam?
So the first one is questions about alternate providers, people that T-Mobile doesn't work great in their district.
Right. And I think, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we'll work directly with you to see which provider you may want to get hotspots from. And then since the other providers are on state contracts, we can work things out. So Bob, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so what we did is we chose T-Mobile as a primary carrier, primarily because they'll give us 4 years of extended service. If the money runs out, we're trying really hard to make sure the money doesn't run out. And we know we've got at least a year, probably 18 months with the funds that we have. We're pretty sure we can extend that out even further with some additional funds. But in case we can't, T-Mobile will guarantee 4 more years of connectivity at a lower capacity, but they'll still guarantee the connectivity. So we went with T-Mobile. We gave them the coverage, all the addresses that we have of low-income housing, and they could cover, they said, about 98% of them. And so, and a great example is Fannin County. They called and said, same thing. We don't have great coverage up here with Verizon or with T-Mobile. Is there anybody else? And so I went to the spreadsheet, and sure enough, in that same city of Blue Ridge, they could serve, there's 4 locations. They could service 2, but not the other 2. And so obviously, to Karen's point, we've got other vendors like Verizon and AT&T on state contract that we will go to as a secondary backup. So if we can't get you serviced by T-Mobile, we will get you serviced by one of the other providers because they're all under state contract.
Right. And we also have access, or the state has access, and thus CTC does, to Ookla crowdsource data and locations of towers throughout the state. So we can help figure out who might be best to serve those particular locations.
So let me just go back. And Michael Murray had a question about firmware. And yes, the firmware will be updated. That's part of the kitting process. We'll make sure of that. We talked about the spreadsheet, who's going to deliver to the student, who manages the filters from Sean. The device can be delivered. I think Karen already said this, but I'll just repeat it. The device can go right to you at a district level. It can go right to the school at the school level, and you guys can distribute them, or we can ship them right to the parent's house. Of course, that's all something up to you. You have to decide how you want that to be done, but T-Mobile has given us all 3 of those options. So whichever one, the filters themselves are managed by T-Mobile. They provide the Sipa filters, and they manage the filters. And we saw Logan asked about, different carriers. We talked about that. T-Mobile does not work well. Yep, I know. Would like T-Mobile to do the work. David, they will do as much work as they can do. The kitting is going to get done. T-Mobile will be doing the kitting. Liam already answered that.
So Bob, I think a question that I'm seeing a lot of in the chat is questions about how districts should handle if they already have a program that gives out hotspots already, how they should handle that.
So, and we know that you guys have not just been sitting around waiting for us to do something. We know you've got a lot of devices already handed out. These are just another set of devices that you can hand out. And that's why it's so imperative that you guys are the controlling agent here, because we don't know what you've done so far. We certainly don't know what your one-to-one capacity is in the district. We don't know what your learning modalities are. And so that's all something that you guys know. And so we just view this as, here's a set of devices for a certain group of kids that if it's beneficial for you to use them. And if it's not, that's okay. If you've already covered these kids and you don't need the devices, that's fine. We'll allocate the money someplace else where, it's needed. So don't feel obligated to take these devices if you've already found a solution. So it really is up to you. There's no there's no problem here as far as one jurisdiction in another jurisdiction, if that's getting to the point that they're asking.
And realize too, I meet with T-Mobile once a week to discuss the program, and I'm talking to the same representatives that go out to you to talk about Project 10 million and such. So they're aware of this program. If there's any conflict or decision or whatever, I'm working directly with them. But it's up to you how, as Bob mentioned, how you want to go forward, whether with this program or stick with what you have.
Let me go back to Jacob's question and Jeff's question. We do not know specifically what students are in low-income housing, because what we did is we took away the names to prevent any kind of PII from getting out there. We just shared addresses. And so what we know is in Fannin County, there are 50 kids living in those 4 units. At least there was back when we collected the data. What we want to do is send you that list of here's the 4 units. Here are the number of kids in each one of these. Can you please go out and verify that these kids still exist in these units and give us the actual address that they live at? Because most of the time we don't collect in data collections apartment numbers and specific addresses. We get the address typically of the housing location and not the individual addresses. So if you decide you want the stuff shipped to the kids, we definitely need those addresses. But just to keep track of things, we need you to take a look at, here's the data that we have, not going to have names on it, but we have 8 kids in this housing complex. Can you tell us, based on your current records, who those kids are and what their specific addresses are? That's what's going to enable us then to start shipping devices.
Okay. Any other questions, Liam, that we should be addressing?
I think that's most of them. The one other one that I was seeing, there was a question from Lena Dowdy asking about, can we use this program to provide regular internet service to the home, not just hotspots? I don't know if you guys want to answer that.
Looking for it.
Because you have students living in the North Georgia mountains without cell service.
No, this program isn't for that. This is where you want to apply for the ECF funding. It's just not, I mean, we focused in on this group of kids. So if what you're saying is, can I get these hotspots for kids who don't live in low-income housing? The answer is no. But there are lots of programs you can apply for that you can get funding for that, ECF being one of them.
And then the one other thing is I saw a couple of questions and just another one came in and reminded me, who is going to be who will we be contacting at the districts?
It'll be the technology coordinators, typically the CIOs.
Right. And the families will be just calling the main number.
We did not give the CIO numbers out as the contact number. We just gave the main switchboard number at the main office. But for the people who are going to get the list and the people who are going to be contacted and asked, do you want to participate, those are going to be typically the technology directors in each district.
And then Rod asks if participating in the 10 million project with T-Mobile, if that will exclude you. No, you can switch to this program if that makes more sense, or stay with that program. Anything else?
The one last question is just in response to us mentioning that we were going to be talking the tech directors. Someone asked if the list can also be sent to Title I directors. I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested in doing, or that could be like on an individual district by district basis.
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll end up sending it to the technology folks, and they can distribute it to whomever they want. Grover, you asked a good question. Without a name or apartment number, how do we know which is the correct student? And so basically, if the student's living in low-income housing, they are the correct students. So what we're saying to you is, if you got students living in this housing complex, we need to know who they are, and because we don't know. we know that they live geographically in that space, but we don't know exactly who they are. So we're relying on you guys to be able to tell us, yeah, I've got 7 students living in this housing complex. Here are their apartment numbers. We're hoping you guys have the apartment numbers and the specific information, because we don't always have that at the DOE.
Yep. Yep. And Rod, yes, you can do both. You can, however you want to do it with the Project 10 million and this program, it's up to you. So yes, you can do both.
The T-Mobile views the state as this is the state participating in T-Mobile. You're also, as a district, participating in T-Mobile, but because we're paying for it, these devices are being counted as the state allocation. So yes, to Karen's point, you can participate in both.
And yes, it's a hotspot per student, not a hotspot per family. So they'll each have their own hotspots, and that helps. I think I was answering the question, Michelle's question. So hopefully that does answer. Let's see, when will the list be sent? Actually, I'm gonna keep going. Looks like we've hit all the ones from here, but we do have a timeline here at the end. So we anticipated your questions, or hopefully we did. So these are the resources that you'll have at your disposal throughout the program. So the website, it's an overview and it's a resource for parents, schools, and districts. So we're gonna go there real quick. This is the landing page. It describes the program itself. It's gastudentconnect.org, and it should be live. Liam just dropped it in. Thank you. So it's really pretty straightforward and simple. So if we go to the school district page, and basically this reiterates what we're talking about here, that you're going to have a representative there for you all the time. They will be available Monday through Friday, 10 to 6 Eastern. So hopefully that works for you. And you know, Bob he's listed as the resource at the end. I'm a resource too. I mean, feel free to reach out to us if it's after hours or before hours or something and you need something immediately. Happy to respond. So that's for the school districts, and then for the students, basically what they have is the table below, which has the address, the name, and the phone numbers to the districts. And then if you can, yeah, it's got all of them. If you can scroll back up, they also have access to the hotspot resource page, which these are all the resources. Know your device. Yep, that's it. If you can, and it's in Spanish and English. So if you can click in there, Jessica. So this is, and this is what is going to be in the kit. This is exactly what's going to be in the document that's in the kit. Here's what's in the box, how to get around your hotspot, what all the little bells and whistles mean. Here's all the buttons. Here's what you do. Yeah, there's a picture of it, or a basic one. I'm not sure exactly the model that they're shipping, but they all kind of work the same. I actually had one here for a while myself, and it had all those indicators on them. How to turn on the hotspot. You can scroll down a little bit. Jessica, there we go. Thank you. How to connect different devices and how they connect within, you know, the Wi-Fi in your home or outside. And then if you have questions, there's the phone number for T-Mobile, Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 5:30. Again, if there's issues outside of here, we're here for you. And then you reach out to us directly if you need to go, or they will reach out to you, and then you guys can reach out to us directly through the ambassadors or the representatives. So that is the resource page. So if we could go back, yeah, can you run back real quick to the website? I want to, I think there's one more thing in here. For the toolkit, okay, go back to the resources. And then, so it's in Spanish there. That's fine. Go back to the school districts real quick. Okay, there's nothing here. Okay, I guess that's all that's available. All right. Right back to the presentation. Thank you, Jessica. So the communication materials, this is the set of materials that you'll have at your fingertips. We've already pre-made these things for you to have information to get out to the students, to the schools and such. So the first one is the, this is the guide for you. And there we go. So, and just so you know, you can download all of these. They'll be editable for you. If you download, they're not editable online. We want to keep them intact. So, but there are spaces in some of the other materials for you to add your logo and such. But anyway, essentially, this is the guide for you. Here's what's in the toolkit. This guide, program information, a student letter, social media, samples, the Hotspot resource guide, and the flyer. How to use each of these things, you know, whether you download and customize them, what we created them for, to get information to the schools, to get information to the students, and then if you want to add the logos, we've put in logo GIF files in there for you as well. So then going to the next one. So this is just the basic program information. It's almost a duplicate and might even be really close to a duplicate of what is on the website. So if you wanted to have more detail, if you want to send that to anybody or just have for your own edification. So that's what that is. And then this third one. So here's a letter that would go to the student and the families. It can come from the school, it can come from the school district, but it explains here's what we're doing, right? And we're going to provide you with this and some instruction. So that's all ready to go for you. And then this next one, for social media, here's some samples for texting, Facebook posts or other posts if you have an Instagram page or whatever and it's up to you, whatever you've found as your best means of getting information out to the families. This just, and you can use these or not, but just some samples here for you. And then this is the resource guide in Spanish, exactly what's on the website, but this is what will go into the kit. And then there's one in English. Yep, there's the English one. And I think it's the first tab. Oh, I think there was one more thing in there that I wanted to share. If you go back to the toolkit, yeah, no, huh? I guess we do have to go back and.
If you click that little arrow right below the apps. No, other one, top. Yep,
yeah.
that one.
Okay, and then there's this flyer. So this is more information that you can send to the schools or send home, and then there's a QR code for them to scan, and that is in English and in Spanish. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So CTC and T-Mobile, I'm not going to reiterate again, but we're here for you. And then Bob's here for you as well. So those are all the resources that you have for the program. Next slide. So here's, this is what you're going to see. These are just some snapshots of potential things. They all have the same functionality, and if, we can have the battery installed or not installed, and then the instructions will go with it. And then a note that the service does come with 100 gigabits of data per month, which should be adequate. Okay, so here's the timetable. So the outreach begins tomorrow. We've got folks ready to go and to start calling. And then the target for responding with the address list. So once you say yes, then we compile that list for you, which we've got pre-populated at this point. So we'll be ready to get those out within a couple days of you saying yes. And then what we're hoping that within 2 weeks after receiving that list of the housing locations, that you can respond with the address list. And as I mentioned, we will have instructions, we'll have columns for you to provide the information, yes or no, whether you want it sent to a school or them or to you. And then we'll have space for that specific address that the unit should be sent to. Orders placed, that's school district driven, but as soon as we get that list back, we're using a spreadsheet that it coincides with what T-Mobile uses, so it'll be really easy to strip the information that they need out and send it off to them. We've got some devices we're in the process of trying to get pre-kitted, so hopefully there will be a stack ready to go, and that indeed that it's immediately after receiving your order that they can be shipped. So there is a set of pre-kitted, and then I know there's been some questions about the supply chain. We're well aware of that, as is T-Mobile, and they have assured us that this program is at the top of their list. But as we all know, we don't know what that is going to look like, the supply chain. So the sooner the better on your end. But we're working and driving T-Mobile as much as we can. And then the service will be activated as soon as the hotspots are received by you or the school or the family. So that's the rollout. I'm going to switch gears here and see if there's more questions.
Yeah, so we had a good one from Taylor Duke, which was, as new students start enrolling throughout the year, will they be able to request additional kits, or is this just going to be a one-time distribution?
They can ask. You call your representative, and we will get the order in the hopper.
All right, and then we also had a couple questions come in about filtering, like for Sipa requirements and that sort of stuff. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the T-Mobile has a standard Sipa compliant filter already built in. That's already part of the program. If you have any specific questions about what is whitelisted and blacklisted, we can get that information from T-Mobile.
And then just another question, basically that was asking about, hot areas that don't have great cell reception. And it's basically just that we'll work with you to try to come up with a solution. That's all I can see. I don't know if Bob, you saw any other questions in there that you think should be answered?
No, I think we've covered most. I'm sure we've missed some of them because they came in pretty fast, but if there's anything that we did miss, put it back in the chat right now, and we'll try to address it.
There's a couple more that just came in. What if we go virtual at a later date and then determine we need hotspots? Yep, just call your representative, and we'll get the order placed.
As long as the kids are in low-income housing, that's the rule for this pot of funding. They have to be in low-income housing.
Right.
Matt Smith has a good question too about eligible students.
We expected to identify whether an otherwise eligible student already has access to in-home internet service. No, if they're eligible for the program, then they're eligible for this program regardless. And Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, regardless of what other service they may have coming into the
No,
home.
I mean, if they've got Comcast already hooked up in their home and got internet on that, they can still have a mobile device. What we're finding, because we looked at, home-based internet service like Comcast, which was actually cheaper and was faster. But when we started looking at the trends and what kids wanted, they wanted the mobility. They don't want to be, tethered to the home when they're trying to do their homework. And then we realized a lot of these kids don't actually go home after school. They go after daycare. They go to grandparents' house. And so it became very apparent that a mobile solution was going to be much more adaptable to the current environment than a fixed home solution. So that's why we went with the mobile solution, and that's why we're hoping that it's a good tool to. We know this is just a small part of the solution that you guys have to provide. We know that you still have to provide the computing device, the learning modality, the curriculum, the all of those things you guys have to take care of. We're just trying to help fill a piece of how to actually get to the internet. We know that there's a whole lot of other things that have to be done that we're not helping with. So this is really a very specific program to help with that connectivity. The data plan will be a 1-year data plan. As Karen said, 100 gigabytes per month. We're very hopeful that we'll be able to go beyond the 12 months. There are additional funds that we've applied for that hopefully we'll get and be able to extend those plans. And the state will pay for it. There should be no cost to the district for this whatsoever. The state is, other than the labor it takes to support the things, your component looking up the addresses, filling out the spreadsheets for us, answering questions, because you'll get questions from the parents. As hard as we try to make the lift light for you, we know that you will get questions and you will get problems that you can't necessarily solve, but you'll still get called because they're most comfortable with you, which is why you really need to distribute these devices. Can you imagine if the state just started shipping out devices to parents? That would not work at all. So obviously this is something where you're the key player in this whole thing. So we're just trying to help you out as best we can.
Okay. And then how will eligible locations be communicated to us? That's going to be in the list that you get from us once you say that you want to participate. So those addresses of the low income housing complexes will be sent to you. And then you give us the actual unit numbers or whatever back per student from that. Do trailer houses count as low income housing? There's another question, Bob, that's related. How do we determine which students live in low income housing? If you want to comment on those.
Yeah, low income housing students, basically, I know the T-Mobile plan is attached to free and reduced, but this plan is not only attached to free and reduced, it's also attached to you have to live in low income housing. It's simply because we have limited funds. And so we focused on those 49,000 students. Not to say that other students don't need connectivity, they do, but we had X number of funds, and so we had to focus in on a group. That's the group we focused on. As more funds become available, we would hopefully be able to expand this, but right now what we're at is the 49,000 students that live in low-income housing.
Yep. And then David Pittman asks, will an MDM be provided so we can retain one SSID and password? The school districts will not have to maintain anything for each of these devices. CTC will be maintaining anything that's needed, and then any passwords and such will be taken care of by the families. Hopefully that answers your question. We need to gather the devices if the student unenrolls. Bob touched on this before. No, but we will need to know, we will need to help to have help tracing where they're going. So getting back to the representative saying that they're, enrolling and hopefully knowing where they're going to. And then again, if you have someone enroll into your school district, that then they mention that they have the device, getting that information to us will be, would be ideal. And just note too, we didn't mention this before, but if someone loses their device or it's stolen, they won't be replaced. So they just get one time. So that's pretty important to let folks know. And that information is in the on the website and in the communications materials. What am I missing, Liam?
There's just a bunch of questions kind of about maybe how the state came up with the list of, low-income housing. I don't know if Bob wants to speak to that at all.
Yeah, that's actually an official list that came from the Department of Community Affairs, who manages low-income housing. They gave us the list. There's 756 low-income housing units in Georgia. Not 756 individual locations. I'm talking about housing complexes. And some of those complexes can be, a couple of single townhomes, and some of those complexes can house, 200-300 housing units. And so it runs a gamut as far as size, but there is an official list that we got from the Department of Community Affairs.
Okay. Let's see. Maybe I missed it, but what data plan will be provided, how long? So the initial is 1 year. It's a 1-year service plan, and the data plan is 100 gigabytes per month. And as Bob mentioned, hopefully it gets extended. T-Mobile is on board for 4 years if needed. So that's one of the reasons that the state decided to go with them. But for now, the program is 1 year, 100 gigabytes per month.
There's a good question in there about what to do if students are moving in and out of the districts. School districts do not have to collect the devices from students that move out of the district. They can keep them, correct? All right.
Okay.
Once the 100 gigabyte is reached, nothing happens to the hotspot. They just stop working until the next month starts. If that becomes a problem, we can move to the unlimited, but it didn't seem that it was worth moving to the unlimited because most kids won't use 100 gigabytes a month.
Right. And if, again, that's something that you can communicate up to your representative, and we can work on if they do run out, and taking a look at why.
There's a couple good questions I've seen about will districts have the ability to determine what is whitelisted and blacklisted in the filtering with T-Mobile?
Right now, they have a standard set. I can work with them and see if there's anything specific. So perhaps you can let your representative know what you're looking for there, and if you've had any issues. And I know we supported, CTC supported, and personally I did too, the Wi-Fi Ranger program. And through that, I know that you guys had control of what was whitelisted and blacklisted, and a lot more hands-on for that. What T-Mobile has done is they're using their standard Sipa compliant package or oversight of the connections. So, I mean, Bob, maybe it's a good idea if I get that from T-Mobile and distribute it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Liam?
There's a good question about so even if they don't have to get collect the devices from students if they move out of districts, are they going to be responsible for tracking that information?
So T-Mobile will be providing usage reports for us. And I honestly don't know how we're going to be able to manage all these devices as kids start moving around. It's going to be difficult. We're going to learn as we go. But it's not going to be here's what I can tell you. It's not going to be the district's responsibility to figure out or collect devices or move them to somebody else. these hotspots are not an expensive piece of equipment that we have to track and make sure it's returned. It's not have to be inventoried or anything like that, through federal law. So, I mean, we'll figure that out as we go, but it's not going to have to be something that the districts are going to have to, say, okay, Johnny moved and now I got to get his device and who do I send it back to? We're not going to ask you to do that.
Anything else that we missed, Liam?
There's just one comment expressing some concern about the 100 gigabyte data caps, but other than that, we're all good.
Yeah, and if that happens, then let us know, and we will talk to Bob and see how we want to handle that.
Again, this is the first time the state has tried to step in and address a homework gap. So obviously, we don't have a set plan that works 100% of the time because this is the first time we're doing it. We have tried to leverage what has been going on in other states and tried to customize it to what Georgia wants to do. And so we're hopeful this will be a benefit to you guys. But as we go through this process, we will learn, I'm sure, make improvements along the way. So just work with us. And if it's not saving you time and money and giving you the benefits that you want, then we're not doing what we anticipated. We're hoping that we can address the homework gap and not take a huge amount of your time or money to do it. That's the hope. And if those things aren't happening, then we didn't implement it the way we wanted to.
That should cover all the questions that I saw in the chat.
Okay, great. And I personally want to thank Liam for moderating. I didn't introduce him. He works for CTC as well as a project coordinator working with me. So thank you, Liam. Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah. Please feel free to reach out to me. I think you probably have my email on the invitation list with questions. We can help, but the ambassadors will be calling you, and you'll have a direct bat line to them as needed. So hopefully that's what you need. Bob, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I see Keith's on the line. Keith, do you want to say anything about the program?
No, other than Karen, Liam, and certainly Bob. Wow, just fantastic effort on all of you to kind of coordinate and make this happen. I agree with so many of the comments, everybody, that this is absolutely wonderful. As Bob said, it's our first stab at this, so we're really excited to see where it goes. But so much appreciation to you guys, certainly Bob, Karen, and Liam for kind of spearheading this and making this happen. You can see that the districts really see the value in this. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Keith. So unless you guys have any other questions, we'll be calling you tomorrow. I saw some people want to review this with their district staff. That's perfectly fine. If you get a call, just say, we're reviewing it. We'll get back to you. There's no pressure here. This is meant to help you guys. And so don't feel like our 2-week deadline is not something, if you can't respond, we're going to, write you off. We're not. We're just saying the faster you get back to us, the quicker we can get devices in the hands of kids. So it's totally up to you. Don't feel any pressure. Don't feel like there's any mandate here. There's not. It's meant to be a help to you. And if it's not, then don't participate. I mean, it's fine. And I understand that a district like Fannin with 4 units and 50 kids might be a little easier to respond than a district like DeKalb with probably 50 units and thousands of kids. So we're going to take into account that some districts have a whole lot more kids than others. The other thing you should know, if you are in one of those big districts, if you don't want to participate completely, you can pick the housing complexes that you want to participate with. Let's say you've focused on 3 of the 10 in your district and you want to focus now on the other 7. That's fine. We don't need to know about what you've already done if you don't have the time to feed that to us. But if you do, it would give us a great overview at the state of what's going on. So again, anything you can provide us, even if you don't want to participate in the 10 million program, would be great too, because we're always looking to see if there's additional funds out there. This would be the evidence that we would send in explaining why we need those additional funds. And so any information you can provide us, like I saw one where suggested that we could look at other ways of collecting information, because they have people living in tents and cars and things that isn't even low income housing, and those kids aren't connected. And yeah, that's a huge gap that we don't know about. And so obviously we'll be looking at things like that, but it'll have to be outside of this program. This program is a specific program that's been earmarked a certain way, but as additional funds become available, we'll be looking at those things also. And Jacob said, is the list of low-income housing available? It is. I don't think there's any issues with posting that. So I think we'll just post those 756 locations by county, so you guys can actually see what's in your county. It's not going to have student names or addresses in it at all. It's just going to have the apartment complex address. And we'll also post the number of students that are in that address. So this is basically the same list that you're going to get, but it's not going to be broken down. It's going to be the entire list of low-income housing.
Right. We can put that list out on the communications materials area.
Is there anything else from the crowd? See the crowd dwindling, so that's an indication that people have got their questions answered and are moving on to their next meeting. Plus, we only have 4 minutes left. So they're dropping like flies. I think it's time to end the meeting.
There you go.
Jess, you want to officially hang us up? Karen and Liam, thank you very much.
Sure.
Jess,
Next slide, Jessica. There we go. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions, we're here for you. Liam put his work email in there if you have any specific questions, and we definitely appreciate the attendance. So take care and have a really good week. Thanks. Bye, everybody.